Well, hi there. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm the author of 5 books, and I help impact-driven people with a message but no idea what to do next write, publish, and launch a transformative book with clarity and purpose. Sonnet-size tips are quick bursts of get me unstuck please advice that can help you get out of your head and back to getting your book written, published, and most importantly, making the impact it was designed to make. In the meantime, no matter where you are in the writing of your book, if you're looking for proven strategies and real solutions to real or myth-based problems, I invite you to visit publishaprofitablebook.com, where I have loads of free content, online courses, and other resources to get your damn book written already. Have you ever had a moment where you think, who am I to write this book? Who's going to read this? I'm standing in front of this story and I'm therefore positioning myself for all sorts of attacks or disappointment, whatever the case may be. If so, I have a suggestion. We have a tendency to humanize things that are inanimate. I mean, it might just be me, but I don't think it is. So I don't think I'm the only person who names my car. Again, if I am, please help me to think that I'm not. I name my plants. And sometimes, I've been known to name other things. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. Cars and plants are the big ones. But I humanize those things and it makes me feel, I guess, I feel like I'm writing my own, like I'm signing my own death warrant here, or something. It makes me feel more compelled to take care of them because now they're humanized. I want to encourage you, if I haven't lost you already, in all seriousness, I want to encourage you to humanize your story. If you're not going to tell your story for you, if it's uncomfortable for you to believe, to own that you're telling your story for you or even for someone else, look at it from the perspective that you're telling your story for your story. You're giving the story the life that it needs and wants and was designed to have. Every experience that happens to us happens for a reason. And I promise I'm not one of those people who says everything happens for a reason and everything has a silver lining. There are things that happen in our lives that we would just as soon say that was unnecessary and didn't need to happen. The fact of the matter is, however, it did. So I think that there can be a compromise made between, I'm glad this horrible thing happened because fill in the blank, which I think is a difficult place to get to for many people, myself included in many instances. And instead, we can rephrase that to say, it sucked that this thing happened. However, given that it did, I'm glad that I could take the following thing from it. That's the part of your story that I want to encourage you to humanize, because that's the part of your story that has the potential to impact someone else. And it doesn't just have to be the crazy stuff. I just outed the fact that I name my cars and my plants. My daughter, my oldest daughter, might maybe be the only person who names her car, the only other person. I don't think so, though. If you're listening to this and you've been thinking for however many years, I think I might be the only person who names my plants or names my cars or names my couches. If you name your couches, I totally don't understand that, but I support it. Then you can listen to this and you can identify. You can readily identify. Now, my car and my plants are not a point of strife in my life, unless I were to get hit in one or kill one, which the most recent plant I acquired, its name is ZZ. And I acquired ZZ because it's a ZZ plant. That is actually the name of the varietal. And it was on the shelf in the plant store on the clearance rack. I have such a soft spot for the clearance rack. You have no idea. So to be clear, when I walk into, say, Lowe's and I go to the garden section, I don't feel compelled to name every plant that I buy just regularly from the garden section. However, when I buy a plant from a clearance rack, I absolutely feel compelled to name it because I feel like that's part of what this plant has been missing, is that no one really ever cared that much. And once you name something, it's kind of hard to, I don't know, let it die. So the people at the plant store, which is called Pueblo, and if you happen to live in or near Phoenix, Arizona, I cannot encourage you highly enough to take a trip to Pueblo. It's in the Garfield district, basically off of Pierce and kind of off Pierce and 7th Ave, but then it's on another street. It's not on Pierce and it's not on 7th Ave, but it's in that general area. Anyway, when I went there last week and I saw this shelving unit, and it was so sad because the shelving unit itself was hidden away, almost like they were embarrassed to show these plants. Like, these are our lesser, we've got to put these guys in the back. It made me think a little bit of Schitt's Creek, if you've watched that at all. If you haven't, I highly encourage it. And at one point, Patrick decides to bring the plungers to the front of the store, to the front of the apothecary, because people are always asking for a plunger. And David just has a complete fit, because who wants to walk in to a gorgeous store and have the first thing that they lay their eyes on be a plunger? But Patrick's like, this is what people want, so here you go. I think that if the stores would put that clearance rack front and center, we would save more plants. But that's a whole separate thing probably. So I walked back to the shelf. I had to walk over a hose. I mean, it took effort to get back there, guys. But I got there and I set my eyes on ZZ and I just thought, plant, I didn't have a name for him yet, but I just thought and I didn't get creative with ZZ because it's a ZZ plant, but I spell it Z-I-Z-I and the varietal is capital Z, capital Z. So I took a few liberties there creatively. But I just thought, you still have life in you. You're not going to die on this shelf. And so I took ZZ over to Nick, who could not be more than 24. And if he is, I apologize. He seemed to me to be about 24. I might find out that he was 17, and then I'm really in trouble. But anyway, I think he was about 24. I have never met an individual with as much passion about plants as Nick. It was so inspiring. I could write an entire book, I think, or at least a chapter about Nick and his passion for plants. So I said, Nick, talk to me about this plant. Why is it on the clearance rack? What do I do? And he said, oh my gosh, this plant is magnificent. And I thought, well, it doesn't seem like it because it was on the clearance rack. And he said, now actually, this plant thrives. I said, because I'm going to feel terrible if I take this plant home and it dies. And he said, no, this plant thrives on neglect. There's never been a better plant for me. A plant that thrives on neglect. It's like the description was written just for me. Now, I did question, well, if it thrives on neglect, why is it on the clearance rack? But I didn't go that far. And he said, you see those other two over there? And he pointed off into the distance. And when I say the distance, I mean like 5 feet from him. There were these two big ZZ trees or bushes. And he said, that's what it could grow into. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes. So it's kind of, when you humanize something, like humanizing ZZ, humanizing a plant, humanizing a car, humanizing any aspect of your story, whether it's something that happened to you or a little quirk that you have that you feel sort of embarrassed to share because you wonder, does anybody else think this way? I promise at least one person does. You may not find a whole cohort of people. Like, I don't know if there's an official Facebook group of 10,000 people who name their plants or their cars, but I do promise that there's at least one other person on the planet who does any quirky thing that, and I say that with hesitation now, only because I realize, could this start like a contest, almost like Never Have I Ever, but the opposite, not the opposite, but along the parallel of, I have this quirk, or this is a quirk I don't have, and I don't know what could happen there. If you're feeling, though, like the focus is on you and the spotlight is on you, and that makes you uncomfortable, take that spotlight and shine it on the story. Shine it on the moments. Shine it on the other people in the story, whether they're people who are actually called out, and not in a bad way, but like mentioned in your story, or they're people you ran into in the course of living your story. Whatever it is, start from there, because those moments, especially the moments that you feel ashamed of, they want to see the light, just like ZZ in the back of the Pueblo store, which I can't go to enough now, wanted to see the light. Like ZZ and his compatriots do not want to be back there in the back of the store where you have to walk over 6 hoses and 4 cans to get to them. They just want to be seen. You want to be seen. Your story wants to be seen. So let it take on life. Let it take on a life of its own. That's my suggestion for today. I'll talk to you guys again soon. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. And please feel free to share it as well so we can get more of our unique stories told. I also invite you to check out publishaprofitablebook.com. It's the home of my online courses for writing, publishing, and marketing your book, as well as free workshops, downloads, and direction. Until next time, just keep writing.